Have you ever read a standardized test question and struggled to figure out what it actually meant or what answer they wanted you to choose, even though you were pretty sure that you'd studied and knew the content for the test? You're not alone. This video is for students of AP History courses, but the ideas here can apply to multiple choice questions on a lot of different tests. I know this because I wrote test questions and assembled standardized tests for AP History, AP Human Geography, SAT, Pre-AP, CLEP, and other tests for almost 10 years. If you find this video helpful, please check out our online courses for the AP World History exam at collegiatecourses.com. See the link below. Understanding multiple choice questions. The AP History exams use a specific formal language style. Understanding that language is very important to figuring out the best answers to multiple choice questions, as well as essay questions. Most multiple choice questions on an AP History exam contain specific kinds of phrases in order to be clear and avoid having multiple possible answers. But that means that the questions are not worded in the language people most commonly use in conversation, or even the language most commonly used in classroom tests. Let's look at some specific examples and then dissect them. When we're done, you'll have a better understanding of the kinds of phrases used in standardized tests, the kinds of skills AP History tests are assessing, and hopefully, how to better choose the best answers. Here are 6 generic multiple choice questions. The passage best illustrates which of the following developments in the period circa 1450 to 1750. Which of the following contributed most directly to the developments described in the second paragraph of the passage? Which of the following best describes a main idea in the passage? The data in the table best supports which of the following during the period 1750 to 1900? The image is best understood in the context of which of the following? Based on the passage, the author's perspective was most likely influenced by which of the following philosophies or ideas? Sometimes students can get lost in the formal phrases, so let's dissect these briefly to help understand them better. Which of the following? This simply means choose from the 4 choices. The AP History exams will very rarely ask what or why or how. Instead, the questions are phrased, which of the following caused? Interpreted, what caused X? Which of the following best explains why? Interpreted, why did, or explain why? Which of the following best explains how? Interpreted, how did, or explain how? Or, in the context of which of the following? Interpreted, what is the context? Most AP History multiple choice questions refer to the stimulus. See above. The passage best illustrates, described in the second paragraph of the passage, main idea in the passage, data in the table, the image, based on the passage. This is done to direct you to the specific stimulus and ask you to apply your knowledge or history skills to this situation. Most AP History multiple choice questions contain relative words that direct us to find the answer that is relatively better than the other options. The best answer choice does not necessarily claim to be the only answer or the ideal answer. It is the best answer out of the 4 choices. From the examples above, best illustrates, contributed most directly to, best describes, best supports, is best understood, was most likely influenced by. Many AP History multiple choice questions refer to periods from the course framework. This is intended to direct you to the main required concepts and developments in the course. In the World History exam, the questions often use phrases like, in the period circa 1450 to 1750. In this case, the stimulus may be from 1500 or from 1775. The question is directing you to consider and choose required knowledge from the course framework from the period 1450 to 1750. Let's apply this knowledge to interpret and decode the 6 generic questions or prompts listed above and add a few specific notes about each kind of question. The passage best illustrates which of the following developments in the period circa 1450 to 1750. Interpreted, which development from 1450 to 1750 is most like the passage? Or, the passage is an example of what development? Note, questions that ask about how stimuli illustrate developments are usually Skill 1 questions. They are often asking us to choose which development or idea that stimulus is an example of, or they require us to identify a piece of knowledge or a development that is most closely related to the stimulus. Which of the following contributed most directly to the developments described in the second paragraph of the passage? Interpreted, what caused the development in the second paragraph? Note, contributed to, led to, caused are all causation words. Similarly, affected or which affect are also causation words. Causation questions make up the largest portion of AP History multiple choice questions. This is a Skill 5 or Skill 1 question. Pay attention to the direction of cause and effect in the question. One or more of the wrong options is probably an effect instead of a cause, or vice versa. For example, the Industrial Revolution increased urban pollution. Increased pollution did not cause industrialization. Which of the following best describes a main idea in the passage? Interpreted, what is a main idea in the passage? Note, this is a very common claims evidence type of question. Skill 3 includes claims and evidence. Look for multiple choice questions that ask about main idea, claim, main argument, and evidence that supports the author's argument. The data in the table best supports which of the following during the period 1750 to 1900. Interpreted, what does the table tell us about the period 1750 to 1900? Note, data stimuli sets often have a question that asks about the pattern of the data or evidence in the table, chart, or graph. This is another Skill 3 main idea or evidence type question. The image is best understood in the context of which of the following? Interpreted, what is the context of the image? Context is a broad process or development that is closely related to the event, development, or theme of the stimulus. It is often not a direct cause. It usually occurred before or during the same time as the event or development in the stimulus. This is a very common Skill 4 prompt. Based on the passage, the author's perspective was most likely influenced by which of the following philosophies or ideas? Interpreted, what idea or philosophy influenced the passage, or what influenced the author's point of view? Note, this is a sourcing Skill 2 question. Sourcing relates to the point of view, perspective, purpose, audience, or historical situation of the author or creator of the stimulus. The interpreted questions are not as precise as the ones used in the exam, but they may help you to understand better and identify the correct answers. Choosing the best answer. On AP History exams, the correct answer for each multiple choice question must be justified based on knowledge, information, or skills from the course framework. Therefore, students should become familiar with the specific key concepts or historical developments in the framework, and they should be familiar with the required historical reasoning skills from the framework and how they are tested in the exam. Knowing that information and those skills will help identify the best answer for each question. The best answer will not usually be a direct quote from the framework. Sometimes incorrect answers will also be from the framework. Students need to choose from the options using the skills noted in each question, such as cause, effect, claims, evidence, context, continuity, change, comparison, point of view, audience, etc. Questions that test required knowledge from the framework. Questions that ask about cause, effect, context, comparisons, continuity, or change will have answers that come from the required knowledge, key concepts, or historical developments in the framework. For example, questions that contain the following phrases will all have correct answers that come from the required knowledge in the framework. Quote, best illustrates which led to, which caused, Which is most similar to? Which change? Is best understood in the context of which? Questions that test skills using the stimulus. Some questions are focused on applying skills to the stimulus and do not require knowledge from the key concepts or historical developments in the framework. Some of these are basic reading comprehension and critical thinking skills questions. Others require application of sourcing skills like point of view or perspective. For example, questions that contain the following phrases are testing reading comprehension or basic critical thinking skills related to claims or evidence. Which main idea? Which claim? Which evidence in support of? Examples of slightly more challenging questions that test sourcing skills include which author's purpose, which intended audience, which the author's point of view. The answers to these questions is found by understanding the stimulus and using a critical thinking skill. Eliminating wrong options. Believe it or not, the committees of high school AP teachers, college professors, and test developers who write AP history tests want you to understand each question and not be confused about the correct versus incorrect options. They want to test whether you have learned the required knowledge and skills for the course. To help you, they try to eliminate confusing wrong answers and make incorrect answers clearly incorrect. By carefully reading each stimulus and understanding the required knowledge from the framework, students will be able to recognize that some options for each multiple choice question are just factually inaccurate, or they don't relate to the current stimulus, or they occurred many years before or after the topic being tested. In summary, AP History multiple choice questions use a variety of standard phrases that you should become familiar with to help you understand exactly what they're asking and what knowledge or skills they're testing. Study the key concepts and historical developments from the course framework. Those statements and that information will point you toward the correct answers to all of the content-based questions on the AP History exams. Finally, understand and practice the skills of causation, continuity, change, context, claims, evidence, and sourcing. They will help you choose the best answers to skill-based questions on the AP History exams. If you found this video helpful, please check out our online courses for the AP World History exam at collegiatecourses.com. Thanks.